I am Julia Pirco, serving as this panel's moderator. I am the director of the Program for International Nuclear Energy in the National Office of the Texas A&M University System. The National Laboratories Office supports our Department of Energy national laboratories in the execution of their missions. Our office is just one indicator of the importance of the national laboratories and their missions to Texas A&M. We're going to start this panel with a short presentation describing the DOE National Laboratories and focus on those labs who are represented on today's panel. We'll get to introductions of the panelists after the presentation, but briefly, I would like to welcome our panelists and thank them and their organizations for participating in today's panel discussion and continued collaborations with Texas A&M. From the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in Richland, Washington, we are joined by Anna Arteaga, a postdoctoral fellow in the Nuclear and Radiochemistry Department. From the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado, we have Dan Bennett, Senior Technical Advisor in the Energy Security and Resilience Center. From Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Livermore, California, we are joined by Beth McCormick, Director of Strategic Workforce Development in the Engineering Directorate. And from Los Alamos National Laboratory in Los Alamos, New Mexico, we have Nan Sauer, Senior Director of Partnerships and Pipelines. I'm pleased to have these distinguished professionals with such a range of diverse backgrounds present here today to answer your questions. They will speak to this shortly after we run through this brief background presentation on the laboratories themselves. While we're switching to this presentation, I'd like to be clear that although the labs are focused on science missions, and this all sounds very technical, all of them employ multidisciplinary teams in their diverse missions. There is a place at the labs for nearly every major. For example, Nan can speak later to an example using our history department here at Texas A&M collaborating with Los Alamos. You saw on the first slide a picture of the United States and all of these labs that are listed here. An outgrowth of immense investment in scientific research initiated by the US government during World War II, the national laboratories have served as the leading institutions for scientific innovation in the United States for more than 70 years. The Energy Department's 17 national labs on the next slide tackle the critical scientific challenges of our time, from combating climate change to discovering the origins of our universe. They possess unique instruments and facilities, many of which are found nowhere else in the world. They address large-scale, complex research and development challenges with a multidisciplinary approach that places an emphasis on translating basic science to innovation. So you'll see in front of you a list of the slides, and we'll talk later about the divisions between the NNSA slides on the left and the Department of Science, Energy, and Environmental Management laboratories on the right. Next slide, please. So representing the Pacific Northwest National Lab, we have Anna Arteaga, and please run the video for PNNL.
Do you want to be part of something bigger than yourself? Immerse yourself in big questions. Take hold of great challenges. At Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, we're working on some of the biggest questions that push the frontiers of science and knowledge. Questions found at the smallest scales. Questions that span the scope of the planet and even the universe itself. We've taken on the challenge of making the nation's energy systems more resilient, more secure. We're helping to protect the nation from determined adversaries, protecting those who protect all of us. At PNNL, you will be a part of something bigger than yourself. It's a place where your work can make lives better, the earth cleaner, and our nation more secure. It's a creative environment that spurs you to follow your passion, ask your own questions, choose your own adventure, and collaborate with our world-class researchers and with our partners at top universities, companies, and laboratories around the world. To work at PNNL, is to see the necessity of diverse perspectives, since tackling great challenges demands the creativity and courage of bold new ideas. We know that diverse perspectives live and thrive in a diverse staff. We celebrate diversity and inclusion as signature strengths. And that celebration of inclusion extends to the Pacific Northwest community PNNL calls home, through the thousands of hours our staff volunteer each year, through our commitment to the education of future generations of researchers, engineers, and professionals, and our partnerships with local businesses and professional associations. We are dreamers and doers, a place where great minds come together, not just to imagine a safer, cleaner, more prosperous world, but to bring it closer. Come see what happens when great minds meet great challenges.
Next slide, please. NREL is where Dan Bennett works. Looks like we might be having a bit of an issue with the NREL. Oh, let's give that a try again.
America's energy revolution was born while waiting in line at the gas pump. At a time when our country's energy security seemed uncertain, our leaders began to question our reliance on foreign oil. Was it possible for the United States to generate domestic, reliable, and affordable energy from clean, renewable sources? Could new energy technologies not only power our nation, but also our economy, creating millions of U.S. jobs, companies, and products? Meet the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, an organization tasked with transforming energy since 1977. NREL is one of the U.S. Department of Energy's 17 national research laboratories, and the only one solely dedicated to securing America's energy future through renewable energy and energy efficiency. Located in the hills of Golden, Colorado, NREL is changing the way we generate, consume, store, and distribute energy. Our major areas of research include renewable power sources, such as solar, wind, water, and geothermal. We're striving to increase energy efficiency through advanced manufacturing, building technologies, and federal energy management. To expand sustainable transportation options, we're pursuing biofuels, enhanced hydrogen infrastructure, and fuel cells. Ultimately, we are reimagining energy systems for the world by harnessing the power of data and computing and focusing on integrated solutions, along with grid modernization and security. NREL's cutting-edge facilities and world-class research staff enable partners to validate, model, and propose new ideas and products. By reducing risk, NREL saves companies precious time, money, and resources while collaborating to bring new technologies to market. And NREL provides critical technical assistance to communities, large and small, helping them solve their biggest energy challenges. The energy innovations we've enabled have created jobs, boosted economic growth, and strengthened energy security. Yet our work has only begun. While the oil embargoes of the 70s are in the past, emerging energy challenges confront us in the future. As the population grows and new technologies and devices are added to the grid, we must examine the effects, enhance security, and increase resilience within our most critical systems. And as environmental threats expand and human demands on urban centers increase, we need our grid to be adaptive, autonomous, and responsive. The Earth's most critical resources, including food and water, are under threat. We need more sustainable and efficient ways of generating energy that considers resource competition worldwide. NREL continues to anticipate these challenges, offering solutions through research, innovation, analysis, partners, and people. We are building the foundation of tomorrow's energy landscape and inspiring the economic growth of the future. At NREL, we are transforming energy.
And next, Lawrence Livermore National Lab, where Beth McCormick works.
Can we produce unlimited clean energy to fuel the planet? Can we create artificial prosthetics to improve lives all over the world? And how do we make the world a safer place for humanity? These are just a few of the questions that LLNL is trying to develop solutions to every day. LLNL is one of our nation's 17 national labs, and ours is located just 60 miles from San Francisco. For decades, Lawrence Livermore National Lab has led the development and application of the innovative science and technology that our nation needs. We apply this innovation to challenges of national security, international stability, human progress, and so much more. Livermore was founded as the New Ideas Lab and still lives up to this reputation today with our intellectual leadership, originality, and audacity. Programs like the National Ignition Facility, Global Security, and supercomputing initiatives demand that we draw on the widest possible diversity of talents, thoughts, and backgrounds, people just like you. Our incredibly wide array of disciplines, from computer science to engineering to physical and life sciences, all come together here at the lab to help our nation lead the future. With cutting-edge technology in additive manufacturing, the world's most powerful and energetic laser, and one of the world's most powerful supercomputers, our teams apply frontier science and engineering to deliver solutions to the nation's problems. And along the way, we serve the public interest and sustain public trust through transparency, honesty, and objectivity. We have a driving passion to excel, lead, and ultimately to change the world. And as an institution, the lab is a place where people find great fulfillment in their work. Work-life balance is ingrained into our culture, and we provide flexible work schedules and recreational opportunities on site through our many activity groups, on-site fitness options, and wellness resources. And that's because we believe that aha moments don't always happen at your desk. The lab will continue looking to researchers with big ideas from a variety of disciplines to help unlock and solve some of the most interesting challenges facing both the nation and the world. Just think, what problems could you solve at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory? Come and build the future with us.
And finally, from Los Alamos National Laboratory, we have Sauer joining us on the panel.
This laboratory is a really special place. You can find scientists in almost every discipline.
The nature of the technical questions that we have to answer as a laboratory almost always go beyond any one discipline.
Los Alamos' role is to apply the principles of science for the betterment of mankind.
The beauty of this laboratory is that we're able to attract some of the most talented people in all fields from all over the world who come here and make contributions to the central part of what we do as a laboratory, helping to make the world safe.
What's special about Los Alamos is this collection of highly talented and highly passionate scientists.
It's that passion that's actually the heartbeat of what the laboratory is all about. It's not enough to be really good scientists. You have to understand the mission itself.
When you think about the complex problems that we need to solve for the nation, these are not easy problems. We love the impossible problems here.
Principally, the mission of this laboratory is to provide the capability to maintain a balance and a deterrent through nuclear weapons and through understanding the nuclear postures of others.
The best war is the war you never fight. What nuclear deterrence is about is ensuring that anyone who might choose to challenge the United States will be met with an overwhelming response they simply can't endure.
The lab is huge. It's extremely complex.
It's the complexity that the lab has that allows us to solve problems that no one else can. We have accelerators. We have places where we can do explosive detonations.
Environmental test chambers, crystal synthesis labs.
Scientific instruments unlike those anywhere else in the world.
We've had, over the course of our history, some of the fastest computers in the world.
All of that is being used all together every day.
In fact, there is nowhere else that can bring the facilities to bear to understand the problems that we confront today.
None of that is really effective without having the people in those facilities doing the science and technology.
I think the people that are at this laboratory today are all essential to accomplishing that mission.
No matter what they work on, everybody counts. People really are proud of being able to support the mission of the laboratory.
There's no place better if you want to make a difference.
Our children have not had to experience warfare on a global scale for over 70 years. It's a tribute to the work that the people of this laboratory do every day.
Well, I personally find those very inspiring, and thank you, panelists, for all that you do for our nation. I would like to move next into a facilitated panel discussion. I will be asking questions that are typically frequently asked questions for the national labs. We will, again, please enter your questions into the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen, and our moderators will be fielding them. We'll be opening up at the end for an open Q&A with our panelists as well. So without any further ado, I'd like to swing to the first round of questions here for our panelists. Let's start with Anna. Anna, excuse me. Would you please tell me a little bit about your background and what it does you to think of the lab as your employer, PNNL?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited. I actually just graduated from Oregon State University with a PhD in inorganic chemistry, and I am working in the nuclear and radiochemistry team in the National Security Directorate at PNNL. And I'm really excited. I was able to go from an inorganic chemist to now working with heavy actinides, and that was one of the things that attracted me to PNNL, was the possibility to continue working with really heavy elements because of the facilities that they have.
Thank you. Dan, what about you? A little bit about your background and what attracted you to NREL?
Yeah, so I'm an old guy here. So I guess I started off at Colorado School of Mines. I did ROTC and got a double E degree, and went off and did 25 years in the Army. And I was a Signal Corps communications officer, and then I kind of ended with cyber, and then I was teaching. I was at the Army Cyber Institute at West Point, and then also teaching the electrical engineering computer science department, where at one point I know many of you might know Dan Ragsdale. So I know he was at Texas A&M for a while. I worked for him, and then his son ended up working for me at the Army Cyber Institute. But anyways, so I ended up getting a note from a friend about, NREL, from a recruiter at NREL, that he forwarded it to me. And so it was an opportunity for me to go back home because I grew up in the Denver area and went to school in Golden. So I ended back up at NREL looking at, I was focused more on, DoD related cybersecurity, but then obviously this was, a way to continue to serve in this regard in terms of energy critical infrastructure security. So that brought me back to NREL. So that's where I'm at now and enjoying it. So
that's a great Aggie tie, and yep, there are Aggies everywhere. It's a great connection source there. Beth, what about you? So Beth McCormick is joining us via phone. We had a little problem with the video, but she's here. So Beth, why don't you go next?
All right. First of all, I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, good. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. My name is Beth McCormick, and I've been with Lawrence Livermore for about 15 years. And before that, I was with Los Alamos. But I also worked in industry for about 15 years. I'm a chemical engineer by education. I went to Michigan State. And so I have been in the high tech. I've been in a variety of industries before I came to the national labs. And the first thing that drew me to the national labs was, to be honest with you, because they're very safe and secure place to work. And even during times of recessions, they don't lay off. Occasionally they do, but very stable place to work. I have to be honest, I didn't know what a great place I chose to work, starting at Los Alamos and now Livermore Labs. And what really has kept me at the labs, it has been to really be able to serve the country, understand not only threats and mitigation of threats, but being in a place that there's cutting edge science that's going to impact all of our lives in the future, and then working with great universities like Texas A&M to help solve these problems. So I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to your additional questions.
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate that. Nan, your turn. Oh, you're muted, Nan. You're muted. There you go.
Does that help?
Yep, we got you. Oh, something's wrong there.
I appreciate everyone being here today, and I hope that you all find this session interesting. So in terms of my background, I did my graduate work at Iowa State University, and it turns out Iowa State is associated with Ames Laboratory, which was or is a DOE lab. And so that's when I got my first taste of the National Laboratory environment. About that time, there were some pretty significant discoveries going on in inorganic chemistry. So they've got a couple chemists here today talking with you. And those were done by individuals at Los Alamos. And so they attracted my attention because of the exciting work that they were doing. One of the things that I personally find exciting about the work at National Labs and at Los Alamos in particular is the opportunity to do work with multidisciplinary teams on really tough problems. You know, you always think of your careers as being a learning opportunity, and I would say the challenges that the DOE laboratories address are complex, they're important, and frankly, they require a lot of innovation. And that challenge and that excitement is one of the things that has kept me at Los Alamos actually for the last 34 years. So it's been a wonderful place to work. And I'd say across the DOE complex, each one of the laboratories has that kind of environment, that inspiring, challenging environment for people looking for a career.
Thank you, Nan. And you know, you bring up a couple points I'd like to bring up now. Both you and Dan said something important to us. Like Iowa and Ames, Texas A&M and Los Alamos also have a special relationship. We are contractually tied to each other as part of the LANL leadership team. So that would be something for the attendees to keep in mind as well. And then a shameless plug for Texas here. Dan, you said you went back home. In Texas, we have one of those facilities that you saw on the second page of the presentation. The Pantex plant is located near Amarillo, and it is part of this DOE National Laboratory complex. I'll move on here. Since we've seen the videos, and that provided a good background and overview of each of your laboratories and missions, how does your background specifically relate to the type of research that your lab performs? And I say this knowing that particularly Beth and Nan don't necessarily work full-time in, or I know them by not necessarily working full-time in what their backgrounds provided for them. So Dan, let's start with you. How does that relate?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Julie. I mean, so my background academically, I was double E and then Mines undergrad and then PhD from the University of Colorado up in Boulder, not too far from here. And then tied into cyber. But I mean, definitely, you know, I'm definitely learning and expanding my horizon by appreciating all the other things that go on here, from basic science research, mathematics, especially given what we do. We have a large international portfolio. So yeah, I mean, we had talked earlier about the type of majors, and it covers the entire spectrum. from, like I said, basic science, math, economics. I mean, I'm working on some supply chain work as it relates to a cyber focus, but the foundational supply chain work is a lot of international economics and stuff like that. So you'll be amazed at the breadth of different disciplines that you get involved with, despite, to some extent, I use my double E a little bit. So anyways, hope that helps.
Yes, that's exactly the type of perspective I'm expecting. Nan, what about you? I know that you could talk about our history ties with LANL as an example.
So in terms of my own background, I spent a lot of years, probably about 25, working in my field as a chemist. And, that was exciting and rewarding. But one of the things that was intriguing to me was relationships with universities. I'm interested in our pipeline programs, so students and postdocs. And so I tilted my career a little bit to engage specifically with our institute's office at the laboratory. I led that for about 8 years and really gained an appreciation for the importance of our relationships with universities, our relationships with students, the fact that they are a pipeline for the staff that we need at the laboratory. All of those things kind of came together. So from my perspective, I use my technical background in terms of talking with different universities. Now, obviously, Texas A&M has a special place in our hearts here from Los Alamos. There's a strong relationship, and it's been an enduring one over the years. While Texas A&M has been associated with the contract most recently, the engagement between the technical organizations at TAMU and the laboratory has gone on for decades. And that's because of the expertise that students gain while they're at Texas A&M. And if you will, the national security flavor to a lot of the curriculum that is there. There's very strong ties, and that's an important part of the relationship and the fact that in my current role, I spend a lot of time engaging universities, working with students, helping people find postdocs at the lab. Because for us, we're a laboratory that's in a little bit of a remote location in northern New Mexico. And, we have to maybe work a little extra harder to identify individuals who want to come join our community, which, by the way, frankly, is just a gorgeous, gorgeous area. But at any rate, I think I'll stop there.
Well, Beth, your turn.
Sorry, I was chuckling a little bit there because it is a beautiful area. This is my background is engineering, but I have an unusual career path because I did take 7 years off to have my family, and so I came back in through human resources, actually at Los Alamos and also at Lawrence Livermore. I'm now back in engineering, but the reason I'm bringing that up is because I still partner, and we still see many partnerships with folks that have degrees that are working in human resources. You can have a degree in psychology, you can have a human resource degree, of course, business, and we all have large business departments that also work with us, that help us with budgets, and we're just like a regular business like any other company. And in my particular role now, which one of the benefits of a national lab, you're hearing this a little bit from the other speakers too, is one of the criticisms is we don't define your career path. The good part of that is you can create your own career oftentimes. I have a passion for helping first generation students, females, minorities to get into STEM. I also have a passion to help the people that we have hired fit into the lab culture. It's a little bit different compared to other cultures. And so I partner very closely with human resources on developing diversity and inclusion programs, training, recruiting efforts, And so I've done special programs just for veterans, and that is the beauty of the National Lab. I can say working in industry, you're very, very defined on what you're going to do and what your role is. And the National Labs are much more lenient on career development and ways to contribute. So that's a little bit about me and my experience. And I think you'll find some similarities probably between all of us that have been at the labs for a while.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Beth. And now, Anna, you're going to bring a completely different perspective to this because you're closer to where the students are now, and I'd like to hear from that. Before I do, I want to add an interesting fact that I've heard from the head of human resources at PNNL, where Anna works. There is an Aggie in every directorate, every major business group at PNNL. And you'll find that to be true. As Nan pointed out, we have long ties to the national labs at Texas A&M. And it's something, this is one way that we hope to continue it, to help you understand what opportunities are there for you professionally to work. So Anna, how does your background right now relate to the work that you're doing and you've been doing for the last 2 years now?
Yeah, so my work is very to some extent somewhat similar to my PhD work. I'm still doing inorganic chemistry, just with heavy elements such as americium and curium and plutonium. Not that I'm there yet, but I will be there soon. Whereas in graduate school, I mostly just worked with uranium. And so it's very similar, but very different. There's definitely a lot more rules and protocols, which I understand even to just work with uranium, whereas in grad school, it's a little bit more flexible. But this has definitely been a really great experience. I'm 1 month into my position. And what I like about PNNL is that it's an open campus, so you can walk into different buildings and you can meet a wide range of people. And there's people working anywhere from biology to nuclear and particle physics. You can be working on a project like mine where you focus on inorganic chemistry, and also have a side project where I'm working on a nuclear forensics project trying to determine the origin of a World War II German uranium cube. And that's something that my boss and mentor is like, well, if you want to do this, do it. And it gives you a lot of flexibility to follow your passion and to not just be stuck in one area like in grad school where you focus on one thing. I feel like during my postdoc, I have the flexibility to work on 2 projects and gain those skills. And so I'm very excited to be starting this.
I could tell that shines through. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing some questions starting to roll in here, and we're going to start focusing on some of those. The first exposure for undergraduates, and this audience, as we know, is primarily undergraduate, to the national labs is frequently through an internship. So we're going to talk about the internship program a little bit. What types of work are the interns involved with at your particular lab, and what types of problem sets might they work on? Nan, I'd like to start with you.
Okay, I'm delighted to talk about the student program. So, this year has been an interesting year. Normally, Los Alamos has about 1,800 to 2,000 summer interns each year. This year, given the COVID pandemic, we changed that a little bit. All of our interns, or almost all of them, were in a remote or virtual mode. And so that made some of the problem sets a little bit different. But in general, we have students in internships across the board in terms of every discipline at the laboratory, everything from business, ES&H, technical areas like material science, chemistry, engineering, you name it, and we have students in those arenas. The problems are quite varied, and we have a couple of different ways of engaging students for these internships. Some of the students join formal technical summer schools, and those schools can be on topical areas like quantum information science, or dynamic structural engineering, or nuclear nonproliferation. So those are actually schools that are run for cohorts of students, typically 10 to 20 in a group, and typically sort of junior or senior level individuals. And they have mentors and a cohort that they work with, and then they have a project or a set of projects that they address. And the types of projects vary with, of course, the discipline, but they may, for example, be asked to set up and test a new quantum computer. That's one of the areas that the laboratory's been working in. They might be asked to measure some, I'll say, structural alterations in a physical entity like a bridge across a canyon near Los Alamos. So those are types of problems that students might have. A lot of our students, in fact, probably 2/3 of the students, are in individual relationships with mentors, and they join an organization like biosciences or chemistry or our weapons engineering organizations, and they're provided with a particular problem that they work on, and they're given a good degree of independence to work on that problem and partner with their mentor and perhaps other students and staff at the lab. It's very individual, so we're able to tailor the internships to the needs of the students. You know, we have many individuals who are, for the first time, really being turned loose, if you will, to work on a specific problem that is broad in nature. And so we spend a lot of time developing those students. We spend a lot of time giving them, if you will, opportunities to learn about the laboratory, and then also opportunities to develop their own skill set. So lots of breadth in the types of positions that we have.
Thank you. Beth, would you like to speak a little bit about the internship programs?
Sure, I would love to. So we look like Los Alamos, but we're half the size. So everything Nan said is exactly right on. Thank you, Nan. We normally host 1,000 students, and last summer we were around 500 with remote. You know, the students on the line are like, what about this summer? We don't know what, we can't predict this summer, but we are expecting to have maybe a hybrid where we can bring you in safely and securely with COVID restrictions. We will try to do that. But we expect probably to have about 700 students. Many of them will remain remote this summer. And we have a special place in our heart for undergrads because most of us have been there, right? All of us have been there. And we know that you want to understand the classes that you're taking and what the applications are, particularly if you're in a STEM field. And so the assignments are given to basically where you are in school. We're quite good at estimating what you should be able to do, and then a little push, right? So you might have to learn to code, or you might have you'll have a push assignment, and you really want that as an intern because what we found is particularly undergrads, a lot of times if your grades aren't fantastic in school, they usually improve after you have an internship because you can actually visualize why you're learning these things. And so we have all types of programs that are similar to Los Alamos. We have a cybersecurity cohort, we have data science cohort, we have a variety of areas of additive manufacturing. And then if you're a business major or a human resource major, again, a similar situation. We also offer internships to all majors, and 2/3 are usually with individual projects. The whole summer has a focus on helping you understand the laboratories as a whole, career paths, networking, meeting other students, and fun. So that's about it.
Anna, I see you nodding along. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, so like Nan and Beth said, PNNL also has a lot of interns that come in every year. I actually came in as an intern, as a GEM fellow. And like the other labs, a lot of students weren't able to actually be here. So most of them were given the option to do online or to do or to push their internship to next summer. And so I know that that's what a lot of people did. And what I really liked about my experience as an intern is that we were divided up into cohorts almost, where if you were Gem Fellows, you met all the Gem Fellows, and then you really got really close to them. And that happened to be one of the things that happened depending on which program you were in through. But we also had weekly socials where all the interns would come and we would all hang out, and you really got to meet pretty much everyone there. And it made you feel like you weren't that alone in a place where everyone's not scientists and doing really great things. And so you kind of felt like you weren't alone, and it was a great opportunity to network. I have found that most of the people that I have talked to were given their own project and were able to take the lead on their project. And one of the cool things about PNNL is that if you do a really great job, they will offer you to stay on while you're in school and do work remotely, which is what I did. And so not only was I continuing my degree at OSU, but I was also still working on my project and writing papers. And I know that this is something that gets done pretty frequently. And so there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity. And if anyone is interested in PNNL internship programs, let me know. I'll pass along the information.
All right, thank you. That's a great testimony there to how internships work. Dan, if there's anything you'd like to add to that, please go ahead. And then I would also toss another question to you about, does everyone at your lab require a security clearance? But first, if there's anything you'd like to add about internships, please do so.
No, I mean, the internship part was probably the thing I was most excited about to talk on this panel, because I mean, I've just been, in fact, many times I forget which ones are interns and which ones are, are young, because, we have one who was a freshman last year and the intern for us, freshman at Mines, and he is just absolutely brilliant. He was a key part of a project that I was working on. And yeah, we don't give them toy projects, you're integrated in actual work that's going on, that's meaningful for real clients and stuff. And so, yeah, just I've been very impressed with the intern program. I know I was at West Point, we would have, cadets do internships for, like a 3-week period during the summer or whatever, but this is in 3 weeks you can only do so much. And so you don't tend to get, projects like real life, projects like this where they're involved with. And yeah, I mean, the types of things in my group that we're working on, obviously we have energy security and resilience focus, but it covers a broad range from, like I said earlier, basic science, computer science, things like that. And so, and then plus, as part of your internship in here, you could be in Colorado and all the outdoors things that you could do as well. So anyways, and then to your other question, Julia, no, I mean, you don't have to have security clearance here. In fact, I came from DoD, worked in cyber stuff, and I wasn't, from basically my first year here, I wasn't really doing much outside of unclassified work. There's plenty of stuff to be done, and when it gets to basic science and engineering and research and all the other things that I mentioned before, that no, security clearance is definitely not a requirement. There's plenty of other work to be done to try and move the ball forward in this space. So hope that answers the questions.
Yeah, it does. And actually, I'm going to point out a couple of things here. With respect to internships, in the National Laboratories Office, we have had, our student worker has done a lot of work to pull together all of the internship opportunities at all of the national labs and consolidate them on our website. So at the end of the presentation, which we'll show at the end during Q&A, we will have our website up there. Our URL will be up there. So those of you who are interested in applying, those opportunities are all listed there. Now, keep in mind that the labs are all owned and operated, or excuse me, they're all DOE labs, but they all have different operators. So they all have a slightly different application process. So you can't just take one and it applies to all of the different labs and sites. So you do need to apply individually to each one. And then with respect to Dan's discussion about the security clearance, we have represented here 2 NNSA labs in Los Alamos and Lawrence Livermore, and 2 energy labs in PNNL and NREL. So I'm going to toss that security clearance question over to Nan, representing the NNSA side.
Okay, thanks. So now require that everyone coming to the lab have a security clearance. In fact, a lot of our students and postdocs never get clearances while they're working at the laboratory. A good portion, about half of the work at the lab, is what we call outside the fence. So it doesn't require a national security clearance. While we do have an emphasis on national security problems, and some of those do require, many of those do require security clearances, much of the work does not. And so we have foreign nationals on site, we have people who don't have clearances doing work for us, and of course then we have individuals who do the national security work, and they do have clearances. I'm going to digress just quickly because I wanted to emphasize something I've heard in a couple of the other discussions, and that was one of the things I think we need to emphasize for all of you is that with many of the labs going to virtual internships, there's going to be a lot of interesting new opportunities next summer for both virtual and on-site internships. So keep in mind what might work for you in terms of any of the labs, because I think what we've done this year has allowed us to learn some new things about how we can work virtually and, if you will, continuously with students, even while they're doing classwork during the school year. So anyway, a little digression, sorry.
No, that's an excellent point. I've heard that from every lab we work with, that this is actually opening up opportunities. Students who may have been deterred because they actually need to move for the summer, and some locations are very difficult to find housing, for example, for just summer. This virtual or hybrid model really does provide some new and interesting aspects, as well as the ability to continue throughout the year. It's not just a summer internship anymore. So this is a good thing here. Would any of the other panelists like to speak to the security clearance or other question? By the way, you're doing a great job of hitting some of the questions that are popping up in Q&A as well. And I'd like to toss in here, we had a question about international students. Nan, I think you touched on that. Obviously, foreign nationals are hired. The application process is no different. It's what happens after if you're seeking, for example, a security clearance, that there would be some limitations for international students. So anyone else want to touch on that topic before we move on?
Yeah, this is Beth. I would say, yes, we do hire international students and postdocs and full-time employees. It's a little more challenging in a weapons laboratory, but it is there. Yeah, and then and I agree with what Nan said, is that we have many new opportunities for students to come in the summer virtually. That's you know, it's really an interesting time. There's many negative things about COVID, but there's many positive things, right? And then hopefully we can make the positive outweigh the negative with opportunities for you. But we definitely hire foreign nationals as well.
And Nan or Beth, or actually anyone here, but could you touch upon one of the questions that has just come in as to whether or not internships would create some kind of contractual or legal binding requirement in terms of accepting an internship?
That's an interesting question.
I'll read the question.
Go ahead now.
Are there any legally binding obligations associated with accepting an internship that may refer to long-term service or something along those lines?
Not that, no, it's just like any other employment. You receive an offer letter and you know, a salary, and you accept it. And we state that we'd like, you know, that's usually we work with a student to set it up so that it's 8 weeks or 10 weeks, whatever works for the student. But there is no long-term binding agreement. Yeah, and I think that's what they're asking. But no, it's just like it's basically like a temporary employment.
Mm-hmm. Anna, as you're a Dem fellow, I know. Would you like to explain your experience, perhaps as an intern, how that worked?
Yeah, so I actually started off with, so I applied to the Dem Fellowship and I was interviewed by PNNL. And after that, I was given an offer and it was like I was an employee. I was given a 10-week offer at first, and then that was extended on to a year, which is where I'm currently at. But yeah, you're basically just an employee of the national lab, and you're expected to work, let's say 40 hours while you're there, and then from there you just work with your employer how many hours you could work if you decide to work throughout the school year. But yeah, that's fine.
Mhm.
Oh, and just to the previous question, PNNL also does hire international people, as well as a lot of the interns are international. And although most of the people in my group do have a security clearance, since we're in the National Security Directorate, I do not. And I do know that there's a lot of postdocs that also don't have clearance. So it's not a requirement.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, since we're on you, and I think this is where some of the questions are heading next. So what are the chances that an internship could turn into a full-time job?
Yeah, so in my experience, pretty high. So I actually am finishing up my internship and will transition to a postdoc in exactly 1 month. So I think that if you work really hard, they already know you. So I think that it's very likely that a position will be offered. At least that was my experience.
Nan, would you like to share some experiences at Los Alamos with that?
Certainly. I'll start with myself. I came to the laboratory as a postdoc, and I would say if you look at our technical staff and our business staff organizations, about 60% of the technical staff at the lab either came to the laboratory as a student or a postdoc. In fact, it's over 60%. So we use these pipelines extensively for our staff pipelines. In fact, one of the things that we've done in the last few years is to put into action, if you will, a couple of new types of positions. We call them post-bachelors and post-masters. And those are 2-year appointments. They're research positions, and they allow people to kind of try out, if you will, for a little bit longer a national laboratory and see if it's the right kind of place that they would like to have their, careers. And so we have a number of different opportunities that allow people, whether it's a summer internship or a summer school or post-bachelor's or post-master's programs that allow you to spend time at the lab and get to know us. Frankly, we encourage people to have multi-year engagement with the lab so that they can understand what we do and learn more about us. We're if you will, demographically a little older right now, so we have a lot of people who are retiring. We are hiring a lot. And so the student and postdoc programs for us will be really important in terms of filling those vacancies. And they are in all areas across the lab.
We had a question come in, and I think we've all just made a gross assumption on our part. The question is, are the internships paid? Yeah.
Yes, while they're paid.
Yeah.
Are paid.
And I just want to point out that the pay is also really, really good.
So there you go.
In comparison to graduate school. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things to note across the DOE labs, the Department of Energy hires a fairly large number of scientists and engineers across the country. And so we want the best and the brightest. We're going to be competitive. So each of our laboratories really thinks pretty hard about what it takes to get those individuals interested. And of course, salary and benefits are an important part of that. And so, I'd say most of us will be very competitive in terms of salary and compensation, both for student internships, postdocs, and also regular employment.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to add on to what Nan said. About 1/3 of our workforce can retire in the next 5 years in the National Nuclear Security Administration, and that means the weapons labs. But the other labs are very, very similar. And so the student program, if you come in as a student, we are hoping that you stay with us. We're very motivated to hire you after you graduate. and we're standing up. I think this is true for all labs. We do pay for. We do have a sponsored additional education, whether or not it's a certificate or master's or PhD. So we do support that as well.
Beth, I'm going to stay on you for a second here. We've had a couple of questions rolling in that do you have to have a PhD or a doctorate degree to maintain permanent employment at the lab? And I think you've answered that, but I'd like you to expand on that. And because that was one of my questions about that support. I know Lawrence Livermore does definitely hire undergrads in a permanent situation, but they also encourage them and support them, as you just mentioned, in the pursuit of higher education. Could you expand on your programs a little bit?
Sure. I would say that, yes, we do hire bachelor level graduates, particularly engineers and computer scientists. The biologist and chemist, it's a little bit harder to come in the door with a bachelor degree, but it can happen. And like Nan said, there's a post-bachelor position, post-masters. But we do, we do make it, we don't make it mandatory, but this is a question that undergrads give me all the time. What are the benefits of a master's versus a PhD? And, it's not always it's not about salary, it's more about opportunities. So it may take you longer with a bachelor's degree to have as many opportunities as someone with a PhD, but it doesn't mean that it won't happen. And what really separates people is how much they can work on teams, they're contributing to the work that they're doing, showing leadership skills. There's many other qualities that we look at for promotion, long-term promotion, but we're very focused on education. We like to give people that opportunity.
Okay, I am going to turn my attention now fully to the Q&A because the questions are coming in here. And I think again, we might have touched on this, but one of them is, how should a freshman undergraduate best prepare for these future opportunities? I hear internship. Is there anything anyone else would like to add to that question? No? I think that is the answer, frankly.
I will add to it. I didn't want to monopolize the call. We also look at what student clubs that you join, how you participate in school, what research, you might have done research in high school. I'm trying not just to talk to the students that are majoring in STEM, but it's tending to be that way. But we do look at your other activities that you're interested in. And if there's, most schools have a maker facility. And, if you're involved with the maker facility, you just put that on your, include that. And freshmen, it's always going to be hard for you to get an internship between your freshman and sophomore year. But there's many other alternatives on campus that you can get involved in.
Okay. We have a question here about a specific major. While I'd like to not steer too much toward that, I think this gives me an opportunity to talk about something. I was just looking through some of the Los Alamos Center activities yesterday, and I noticed the tremendous amount of work that we could do collaboratively with outside agencies, particularly like DoD, NASA, things like that. That's how universities can collaborate with the labs, and there's plenty of callbacks that we could point to there. What about opportunities for like aerospace engineers at Los Alamos, for example, Nan, or Sandia for that matter? They're not here, but we could speak to them.
Okay. Well, actually, certainly happy to talk about that. So one of the major areas for Los Alamos is space. And so decades ago, LANL was involved in putting up satellites to understand global nuclear detonation detection and see what was going on in the world. So we have a large number of individuals who work in our space program, and aerospace engineers are one of the sets of folks that we seek out as part of our recruitment efforts. I would say also within our weapons program, and I say this is true of Los Alamos and Sandia, we have people who are interested in hypersonics and people who think about hydrodynamics that are all tied to, if you will, the flow of things through the atmosphere. All those types of problems that are associated with, I'll say, broader aviation are applicable to some of the work that we do, both in satellites and in the weapons program. So lots of opportunities there.
Thank you. And I think that's true of some of the labs, but not all. You'll find that they all have a different focus area. And again, on our National Laboratories website, we have a summary of all of the labs. And you can also go right to the DOE website and look at the summary of the missions of each one of these laboratories and facilities. And you'll find them to vary greatly in terms of their pillars or their emphasis areas. So in that, you might find answers to more specific questions about majors. I see another major mentioned here about public health as well. And I know the laboratories definitely are involved. Again, I hate to keep pointing at Los Alamos, but I'm very familiar. We've been doing work with the COVID work as well. So please take an opportunity to go to the National Laboratories website, the DOE websites, and all of the websites for all of these individual laboratories. And you can glean a tremendous amount of information about your specific area of interest there. The websites are excellent sources of information. We have an interesting question here about ethics. I think, Dan, you've been quiet for a while, so I think I'll toss it your way. The problems in areas that the national labs are addressing have significant consequences for the population of the world. Given the great impact these areas could have on the future, is there a code of ethics that governs your research? And that's maybe not you specifically, but the laboratory.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we definitely consider that, especially NREL, just get back to the earlier point that regarding international, we have a significant international set of researchers here, and it gets back to the best and the brightest as well, trying to, given the, the difficulty and the problems that we're addressing, you cast your net as wide as you can or whatever, given the mission. And obviously our mission here is, obviously focused on, energy, efficiency moving forward and, for the sake of the planet, but then also for resilience aspects and so on and so forth. And so it's, it's to the entire world's benefit beyond, obviously just the United States. And some of this comes into, there's also concerns as it relates to national security related work, and some people aren't interested in that. And so we try and keep that, delicate balance here. And we do have an ethics thing, and then everything we do is, as it relates to defending US critical infrastructure, but obviously nothing just me coming from DoD and cyber and stuff, nothing that's offensive or would be used for offensive purposes, is one thing from an ethics perspective that we abide by in that regard. Just to hit on a couple other points, since I was quiet, Julia, some of our greatest people on our staff started off as interns, so it's definitely an opportunity and is at all level. Like I said, we had a guy yesterday, was the starting freshman undergrad and was doing an internship with us. So we looked at, their background from high school and stuff that they were involved with, and what they might have used to apply to their undergrad. And the last thing I wanted to touch on too was the aerospace engineer. So wind energy requires a lot of aerospace. And so there's that connection as well. So there's definitely across the breadth, there's so many different disciplines that you can incorporate across, all the research that the labs do. So.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else want to touch on that topic, or can we move on to some other questions? I want to make sure the panel gets their chance here. All right, so then I'll move in. How much time do students typically spend working in the labs daily or weekly? Anybody?
It depends. Really, I mean, I think it was brought up earlier on Onan or whatever. We just work with their schedule, and just based off that. So it doesn't have to be a set period of time. Obviously, during the summer, it could be more, 40 hours or whatever. But then, during the school year, like I sometimes forget some of our interns. I'm like, oh yeah, you're not available right now because you're in class. So it's pretty adjustable as far as, at least from our perspective. I'm sure it's the same with the other labs.
Sound like you integrate them well. Nan?
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is Nan. So most of the interns work 40 hours a week during the summer, but I'd like to reemphasize what Dan said. There's flexibility, particularly during the school year. Our goal is to make sure you're successful in your academic career and that you learn other things via your lab internship rather than, detract from your school studies and things like that. Internships are designed to augment your learning opportunities. And so we're flexible.
Excellent. Another question. Are there any cooperative programs for universities to grant PhDs based on research completed at the lab? And Anna, I know PNNL does. It may be a program you're not familiar with, but if that relates to your experience, please go ahead.
Yes, so PNNL actually has collaborations with universities such as Washington State University and Oregon State University, where students complete 2 years of their PhD at their home university, and then the last 2 to 3 years at PNNL. And so they have 2 advisors, but the research is very similar. So they start their work and then they finish their work at PNNL. And I know that they have this also with other universities. I know people that their PhDs are solely at PNNL. And so not only are they staff scientists, but they are also PhD students or master's students. And so these people obviously do not work on anything that is classified. And so they're able to publish papers and complete all of their work while they're working at PNNL. And I know a few people that are currently doing this, both completing their PhD just at PNNL or splitting their time, and they seem to really be enjoying having multiple people mentor them and having that experience. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible at PNNL, and I'm sure that it's also at the other labs.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share their experience at their lab?
Yeah, this is Dan. Yeah, we've had numerous people, given the resources that the labs have, inherent in being a lab, a lot of PhD students, at least some case, or even just graduate level students, are able to use a lot of the time to help facilitate their research for the purposes of being able to complete their dissertation work. So we had one that actually was at Iowa State and went back and defended recently, and yeah, actually Washington State as well. So.
All right. Another question. Does having multiple degrees give you more flexibility or opportunities?
I can answer that one. We like seeing multiple degrees because basically because of the types of projects you're going to be working on, a variety of projects over time, and so particularly I like to see engineers with different degrees commonly. Maybe electrical engineer that has a master's in computer science, or a mechanical engineer that has a master's in aerospace. The mixture fits well into the national lab because of the types of projects that we have and the diversity of the projects. So that's definitely a great thing to do.
All right. And to close out, we have one more question that I think I will field. It's what other labs do you collaborate with? Obviously, I think I'd like to make the point that all of the labs collaborate with each other. There are some that have stronger relationships than others simply because they have an overlap in areas of focus. The specific example given here was Southwest Research Institute. SWRI is not in the DOE National Laboratory Network that if you can see the slide. It's not one of the labs that we're talking about here. But if you are interested, next Wednesday, Texas A&M is hosting a Research Labs Day, and I believe SWRI is represented there. But they are not a DOE national laboratory, just to be clear. And again, the National Laboratories Office is happy to make clarifications about things like that. That's why we're running this program, so that you are comfortable and familiar with all of these different opportunities that are in front of you. I hope that you have found this informative. We are actually running out of time, and we will get cut off here in 1 minute. So I don't have a chance to do any wrap-up statements, but I would very much like to thank the launch program and the DOE National Laboratories and these particular representatives in particular for participating in today's Q&A. Our contact information is up on the screen, and we're happy to help connect you to these future opportunities and expand your knowledge about DOE's national laboratories. Thank you.